Well, I mean, 12 weeks ago, I left my lovely hometown of Scotland, maybe not quite so lovely in Glasgow, and went to Israel. And I went off to do a summer course on conflict resolution. When I got there, obviously, I got a slightly more practical lesson than I was anticipating. And it was only when I actually got back that I realised, even just having been there for 2 months, I'd got conditioned to certain things. For example, I walked in here today and I went, big glass windows. Safe zone, how far away is that? And wait, no, it's okay. Siren's not going to go off. Every time I hear a motorbike go past, that kind of loud, the increase in pitch, my heart kind of races a little bit as I think, is that the siren? Do I need to run? No, it's okay. So, for me, that's going to wear off, as I realise, I am safe now, but it gave me a very, small insight into the lives of what many people are living, and the kind of fear that they face every single day. And so, like I said, just when we were then kind of looking into the mentality of these people, it at least gave me some kind of understanding as to why they maybe act the way they do. And so when I was in Israel, we were taken to a town called Ein Karam. It's a lovely little village just on the outskirts of Jerusalem. And originally it was an Arab village. And then in 1948, with the Nakba, the Arabs all left and gradually it became a Jewish village. And the village itself has got a lot of history. It's in the Bible, so many stories. But when I was there, I was told the story of a man, Moshe Amarav, and he's from the village. And he told us about how he decided he wanted to know the story of the Palestinians that used to live there. So he did a lot of research and he managed to find one man who was currently living in Bethlehem. So he went to Bethlehem and he got this man, and along with his son, his grandson, and his great-grandson, they all went back to the village. And so there the man got to kind of tell his family his story and finally share his history with his family. So, whether it was playing in the trees or, just all the kind of stories. And eventually the man said, "Can we go to my house?" So Moshe took them to the house, knocked on the door, and the woman kind of opened the door and kind of went, And Moshe explained. And so she very reluctantly, but, she let them in. And the man was just so pleased to get to, again, just, show, that was the tree that I planted, 50-odd years ago. How are the figs from it, And he was just amazing, again, getting to just share this with his family. There was still some tension. So Moshe took the family back to Bethlehem and he asked them, "So what's your family story? Where were you all from?" And he said that before they moved to Ein Karam, they were from North Africa. And before that, they'd been from Granada in Spain. So Moshe thanked him and went back. And so he went and kind of knocked on the door again and kind of apologised for just kind of springing that on her. And so he asked the woman, Victoria, "So what's your story? Where are your family from?" And she said, "Well, originally we're from Morocco and moved to Ein Karam in 1951. And before that, they were from Granada in Spain." So Moshe kind of realised, their ancestors could have been on that same boat, going to North Africa. And so what he was trying to kind of say to us is that, there's a common story here. But he was saying that, he's told this story to many Israelis, and they all identify with the common story. They identify with the story of the refugees, because most Israelis have that story. Most Palestinians have that story. And the problem was, he said that as soon as he said, "What's the political implications of this story?" all of a sudden they go, "Oh, so he wants my house. No, it's my house now." And, forget the common ground, forget the common story, all of a sudden there's this barrier put up. And Moshe, who was telling us the story, he was actually the head of the Jerusalem team at Camp David. He was one of the ones that kind of actually got Arafat into the negotiations. And so he's spoken to many Palestinian leaders, and he said that from all the Palestinian leaders he spoke to, They'd all basically said that 80% of Palestinians don't physically want to go back to their houses. So it's not really a threat to the Israelis. They just want to symbolically go back. It's the symbolic recognition that they're after. It's about the memory itself, not about money or, like I said, physically going back. So Moshe had proposed this to Israeli prime ministers, well, why don't we put up a Nakba museum in Jaffa? Or why don't we put plaques on all the houses with the previous owners' names, just to kind of finally say, we acknowledge the wrong that has been done. And unfortunately, so far, there's not been a prime minister that's kind of willing to do this. And the thing is, I think, like I said, you can have a common story, common narrative, you can have sympathy for someone, but unless you're brave enough to actually admit, your own faults or, your ancestors' faults, while you kind of hold on to that, you're not giving the other person a sense of justice. So, so that was that kind of situation. And then we kind of, in my course, we were looking at conflict resolution, like I said, and we spoke about how when people are in conflict, they tend to go into this kind of victimization mode. So I'm the victim, he's the aggressor. And, even if I do something wrong, oh, well, he forced me to do it. I don't want to do something wrong, but he's forced me into it. And when I was there, I could see that. And the Israelis, they were soldiers. They didn't want to be soldiers. They didn't want to be guarding walls. But they said, but they're forcing me to do it. Palestinians, we don't want to be throwing rocks at someone, but they're forcing us to do it. So, like I said, it was horrible, obviously, being there. But, you got this really insight into this kind of polarization. And you could just see the fear of, they didn't want to admit their own past, because they almost felt that as soon as they admit anything that they've done wrong, their whole kind of reason of what they're doing just now, they felt that as though, if we admit the Nakba, then we lose our justification for just now. And the thing is, I think this polarization, it exists to help unify us against a common enemy. So, back in the day or whatever, it unites countries, it can be a good thing. But, on a kind of personal level, at the moment in Scotland, we've got the independence debate going, and it started off as well as politics can go. But you can already see there's this, it's the Scottish people against Westminster. And if you're for Westminster, you're a traitor. And that's it. If you're a business and you're for Westminster, you're going to get boycotted. And it's got, like I said, it's just got into this absolute polarization of, you can't be both. There's no middle ground. It's one or the other. And, from what I've seen, people lose sense of the common goal, and they lose sense of common humanity. And they start just listening to their emotions. And they're just so caught up in these emotions that they completely lose track of all reality. So while, the Israeli-Palestinian conflict is quite extreme, and even, the Scottish independence is, again, kind of not your everyday thing, I've also seen this, with my friends and with myself. Just conflicts, whether it's arranging a wedding, can be quite stressful. Bullying on the playground. You can see people going into this complete victimization mode. And like I said, I think sometimes even having sympathy or empathy just isn't enough. We have to actually almost be told, look, step back, view this independently. And then once you can actually see the reality of the situation, you can start to kind of acknowledge that your own behaviours may have contributed. And once you can acknowledge that to the other person, you can give them that sense of justice that they were looking for, allowing for true resolution. And, just today, we're in Dublin. We couldn't have been here, perhaps, not that long ago. And I think it is quite a good example of how bravery and perseverance can actually overcome conflict that's existed for generations. So I think there is a positive hope for the future, at least. So.